Born in Los Angeles, California in 1941, the boy who would grow up to become the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the U.S. House of Representatives could not imagine how dynamic and influential his boyhood home would become. Howard Lawrence Berman saw his city boom and watched as the San Fernando Valley transformed from a sleepy agricultural area to a rapidly expanding mix of urban and suburban panoramas. New towns sprung up, old ones grew up, and millions of people from around the world poured in to fill it. By the time Howard Berman attended UCLA in the early 1960s, LA and the Valley had become a truly globalized community. Berman received his BA in 1962 and his LLB in 1965. Upon his graduation from UCLA Law School, Howard began his career in public service with a year's work as a VISTA volunteer. From 1967 until 1973, he practiced law in Los Angeles, specializing in labor relations. He decided upon a life of public service, and in 1973, Howard Berman was elected to the California State Assembly in Sacramento. In his first term in the state legislature, then Assemblyman Berman was named Assembly Majority Leader, the youngest person ever to serve in that leadership capacity. He also served as chair of the Assembly Democratic Caucus and the Policy Research Management Committee of the Assembly. Believing he could best serve his California constituents from Washington, in 1982 Berman ran for the U.S. House of Representatives from California's 28th District. He was elected to Congress, where he was soon named to the Foreign Affairs and Judiciary Committees. The 28th Congressional District spreads from the Hollywood sign to the city of San Fernando in the north and includes the communities of Pacoima, Arleta, Panorama City, Sylmar, and North Hollywood. The southernmost border follows the famed Mulholland Drive, taking in Encino, Sherman Oaks, Van Nuys, Studio City, and the Hollywood Hills to the east end of the Santa Monica Mountains. The population of the 28th District is among the most diverse in the world. The central and northern parts are largely Hispanic, while the southern has a large Jewish population. Most of the planet's ethnicities and religions are represented here in large numbers. Armenians and Koreans, Indians and Thais, African Americans and Iranian Americans all call the San Fernando Valley home. The district reliably supports Democratic presidential candidates. In 2008, Barack Obama captured the district with 76% of the vote. A self-described liberal, Howard Berman embraces the diversity of his district and aligns himself with the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Berman has championed protecting American film industry jobs from outsourcing, also known as runaway production. The Almanac of American Politics says, "There are few House members who have made such an imprint on legislation in so many areas as Howard Berman." The Almanac goes on to call Berman one of the most aggressive and creative members of the House and one of the most clear-sighted operators in American politics.
Congressman, we value your point of view and thank you for opportunity today you give us. Before I start my question, I would like to ask you your point and your vision about Iran in general.
I think my views reflect the views of most of the American people, and that is that we have a very basic affection for the Iranian people, a tremendous respect for the culture, the accomplishments, the historic role of first Persia and now Iran in world civilization. And as a congressman from Los Angeles, we've had a particular opportunity to get to know many of the people who have come from Iran, and we live and work and socialize with them, and that's just added to the respect and affection that we have for the Iranian people.
Congressman, last couple of years, the world is worried about nuclear issue in Iran.
Yes.
I'd like to hear from you.
Many of us are very concerned that Iran is pursuing a nuclear weapons capability. And that makes us nervous for several different reasons. The first reason is that when we hear some of the comments from the current president of Iran, President Ahmadinejad, we worry whether or not he would actually use such a weapon. And this, of course, causes great apprehension in America and I think in many parts of the world. Secondly, if Iran pursues a nuclear weapons capability, then many other countries in that region will. It will be the end of the non-proliferation regime. President Obama has spoken about the need for the nuclear powers now to work towards ending nuclear weapons. If Iran gets a nuclear weapon, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey, other countries in the region will also want a nuclear weapon. We will be going in the wrong direction for world peace and world stability. And once many countries have nuclear weapons, the likelihood of their being used grows tremendously.
What about the recent diplomacy about this?
Well, we're a little encouraged by some of the agreements that were made, agreements in principle that were made at the October 1st meeting of the what we call here the P5+1
right.
with the representatives of the Iranian government. Because for the first time we had a sense that the Iranian government was willing to entertain taking some actions that might reverse the direction we see things going in. But I have to add, words are cheap. And for us, we want to see agreements written down and implemented. And we're going to be very suspicious until that happens.
And that's the next step, or what's the next step?
On October 19th, technical experts from the Security Council members plus Germany will get together with Iranian technical experts to discuss putting this agreement into specific words and including dates of implementation. Will Iran, in fact, allow much of their uranium that they've already enriched to be transferred to Russia for further enrichment, then given to France, where they will be put into fuel rods and sent back to the Iran in those fuel rods for the nuclear reactor in Tehran. This is only a small step, but it's an important one because it sets back the nuclear clock. And the Tehran reactor is under international safeguards. It is used for medical purposes. Those are good purposes. And every country wants to have the best technology possible to help the people who have cancer and who need the kinds of medical isotopes that reactor can produce.
Of course. And how sensitive is the Iranian government about this matter, do you think?
How sensitive are they? Well, Iran says one thing. We only want to have enrichment and reprocessing for a peaceful program of nuclear energy. But the secrecy with which they've gone about it, their willingness to violate the treaty that they have signed, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the failure to inform the IAEA, which is the enforcement agency for that treaty, of their different actions. They hid the Natanz reactor until a dissident group exposed it, until they concealed the construction of the nuclear facility at Qom until they heard that we had learned about it, and then late in September informed us of that reactor. These are actions inconsistent with their words. Until Iran becomes totally transparent, until the Iranian regime reveals all aspects of their program, many of us are going to be suspicious that they're really pursuing a nuclear weapons capability.
How much does the administration trust the Iranian regime?
Very little, to be honest with you. And that's why Ronald Reagan used to say, trust but verify. But for us, with Iran, we start out looking at some of these actions, and when they indicate a change in direction, we start out somewhat suspicious. But part of this administration's, President Obama's approach has been, let's see if we can work through this diplomatically. So we're willing to meet, to engage, to deal with all of the issues that separate us from the Iranians, in the hopes that we can resolve this issue. But we cannot forget recent history here, the efforts at concealment, the kinds of actions the regime is taking in a number of different areas as we deal with them.
I would like to ask you about Iranian domestic situation.
Sure.
And government response.
Well, I think the whole world.
I mean, the Iranian.
Yeah, the whole world has been watching the Iranian regime's response to the recent elections. A lot of us think there's evidence that the vote was rigged, that the suppression that took place against the Iranian people by the regime was brutal. Demonstrations broken up violently, peaceful demonstrations broken up violently, massive arrests, in some cases people executed, efforts to shut down cell phone communication and computer text messaging. The regime looks like it is treating the Iranian people as the enemy. And our hearts and our sympathies here are with the Iranian people.
And how about the Obama administration respond?
Well, the Obama administration, I think, has handled this correctly, because the last thing the people of Iran need is for the United States to too crassly come down and intervene in these events. The regime has spent a great deal of time trying to claim that America is the great Satan, and in the end, developments in Iran are going to have to be led by the Iranian people. But the Iranian people should know that we are watching carefully. Our hearts were with them. We know the struggle that they have in front of them, and our hopes and our that their effort will be successful in changing the nature of the regime, but that primarily that is going to have to be the role of the Iranian people.
One of the most important things is sanction.
Yes.
I cannot call it against Iran, but is a sanction, you know?
Yes. It's not sanctions against. It's not sanctions directed at the Iranian people.
Exactly.
We talk about sanctions to get the regime to change its behavior, and that's what the goal is. This administration's first approach is the diplomatic one. Let's engage. Let's see if we can work through these issues. Let's see if we can provide a verifiable end to Iran's nuclear weapons program. If diplomacy is not working, then we are talking about not just America, but in concert with hopefully the Security Council members and the world community, but if not, a large number of the nations of the world, the kind of crippling sanctions that can tell the regime that your future, in terms of your economic strength and your ability to grow your own economy, will not succeed if you continue your current course.
And the calendar for the Puerto Rican?
Well, again, we have several dates in October where we're going to discuss the issue of moving 80% of the low-enriched uranium out of Iran for this medical program.
October.
We have another key date in October when the inspectors are going to see this recently disclosed enrichment facility near Gom. And meanwhile, in the Congress, we're going to start moving some sanctions legislation. The United States is engaged very directly with the members of the Security Council in a possible sanctions regime. In other words, our preference is the diplomatic solution, but we are not going to be caught by surprise if that fails. Too many other times, Iran, the regime looked like it was going to go ahead to resolve the issue and then change direction, and so we're not going to be caught asleep at the switch here.
Congressman, I believe religion and politics in all over the world is mixed. I'd like to ask you, what do you think about religion in government in Iran? That's totally is different. Am I right?
Well, it is. I mean, America has its own unique history here. Mm-hmm. This country, originally, the original settlers were who came, in many cases, from England and other countries, were deeply religious people. But they understood from their own experience in England that the government should separate itself from religion. It should protect the freedom of everyone to express themselves religiously, but it should not establish a state religion. Other countries have different histories and different backgrounds. In Iran, it was very much a part of the revolution was what was religion and the regime's leaders' notions of their notions of Islam, and it became part of the state. Very much so, and definitely part of the government. Although recent events, we see splits between some of the religious leaders in Iran, and sometimes we wonder if Iran, with its larger role for the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, isn't moving from a religious theocracy to a military rule. It's too many well-known ayatollahs with great reputations are splitting with the regime's interpretation of policies, and we see a corresponding increase in the power of the military forces in Iran.
And my last question is, what's your advice for Iranian Americans in this country?
My advice is to take the traditional American way, which is to get more active in the events of this country, the political events, the debate on the major issues that the American government is confronting and trying to deal with, to be active, but never to forget the homeland. Part of the wonderful American tradition is you can be loyal to the United States and involved and engaged in the American political system, and still care deeply about the homeland, the place from where you came, where many of your relatives still might be. This has happened over and over again from the first wave of immigrants who came to America. And what I see with the Iranian American community is a growing awareness of the value of being active in the American political system while still keeping in contact with the forces in Iran and the relationships in Iran.
Thank you so much, Congressman.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank you.
Privileged to be here.
Since his interview on MTC, Congressman Berman has returned to Congress determined to encourage sanctions against the government in Tehran, while at the same time demanding the fair treatment of Iranians currently protesting the election results in that country, and to protect the rights and liberty of Iranian Americans here in the U.S. Howard Berman is truly a representative of all the people.